wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day, she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later, he came back to return the stone to the woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back to you in the hope that you can give me something much more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone." How many times do we hear what we have within us? Let me restate that. What we hear in unity related to what we have within us. Not particularly what we hear, let's say, in the news. Joel Goldsmith says God exists in us as us. We are love itself, prosperity itself, perfection itself. One of the unity pamphlets says, "We align ourselves with the Christ standard not as an ideal, but as a living reality. In unity, we believe it's attainable." And unity, second principle, really kind of talks about God being individualized in each of us as the Christ Spirit, Christ within, or indwelling Christ. And that as children of God, our true nature is perfect and complete. That's what we have within us. That's who we are. We come here, we're told that, or as Reverend Seymour would say, we are reminded of it. He used to call himself a reminder. This stone is not her security, not her source. Belief in God is her source. Actually, I changed that to knowledge of God is her source. This knowledge of oneness with God never wavers, for that's where she resides. Wherever she is, God is, and all is well. There's a story of Michelangelo creating his masterpiece, David. And he said he worked under the premise that David was already in the block of stone, just waiting to be revealed. And that his job was to chisel away that which was not David. Jesus reminds us, of course, in miracles, there is nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. The only difference between us is that I have nothing else. So how do we chisel away that which is not part of who we are? Chisel away all the accumulated baggage and decades of thoughts and beliefs and emotions which we've created to protect and defend and at times to survive, but which were not put there by God. Those are not what I am. The woman in the story has the I am within that. The stone means nothing. And in writing this, I thought a lot about Reverend Seymour, who emphasized I am, and how he reminded us to be careful with the words we use to follow. I could see people nodding their heads, some of you remember that. Eckhart Tolle in New Earth says that it's important to say there is unhappiness in me versus I am unhappy. That unhappiness has nothing to do with who you are. You are not unhappiness. You may feel unhappy. Now, I like that, but I have to say, there is unhappiness in me is a little awkward. It's Yoda-like is what I realized. And then I thought, yeah, yoga was pretty wise. But you get the distinction, however we word it. Anyway, I had thought something a little different in remembering Reverend Seymour's words. And what went through my head was, okay, I am not an impatient person. I am a patient person with lapses. I thought that was kind of a good compromise. I am not a fearful person. I am a peaceful person with lapses. I am not a judging person. I am an accepting person with many, many lapses. Speaking of judging, went to a silent retreat a few months ago at Dayspring Retreat Center in Maryland with Jan. Jan and I were there. And the wonderful weekend experience. You're with people you don't know, quiet for 2 days, and time to relate to others in that very intimate way, and to observe oneself. And I did indeed observe myself. And I watched myself in my peace and relaxation, judging others a lot. Being annoyed for someone taking so long to get to the point when we were first introducing ourselves. I observed myself making up stories about this woman who came late, so the whole group had to wait that first night because of her. Then I observed my thinking when I signed up for serving a meal. Everybody gets to serve a meal and then clean up. Not a big deal. But as I'm looking at the names on the list, I stayed away from partnering some people because I knew they'd be lame, lazy, show up late. By the way, I just met these people. I am so gifted. I realized what I was doing. I had the luxury of being aware at that moment what I was doing. Also, the training to observe myself without smacking myself. The training that I get here, that I get from Course in Miracles. And I thought, even though I'm feeling so relaxed, I'm feeling so judging, I am still so impatient, and I stopped, recalled Reverend Seymour's reminder, and I thought, no, that's not who I am. I am someone who could also stand at the bedside of a person who is dying and be present. I am someone who can tell a person they have HIV with compassion without fixing it or making it okay. I am patient and loving too. And I thought, that's who I am, that is what I'm capable of, what I have within me. Chiseling away. Tolle tells us that the voice in our heads is not who we are. And I love that reminder, that we are not the voice, but the one who is aware of it. My awareness of those negative I am statements, of those judgments, is my higher consciousness. He also says awareness and ego cannot coexist because ego implies unawareness. I slowed down at the retreat, experienced the gift of awareness, of mindfulness, and as I said, just as important, without smacking myself around. I have tasted moments of being like that woman. Tasted. I bet you have too. Perhaps, like me, you're working on extending those moments to experience something even more precious. But we all have within us. If I asked you, what brings you back to church over the years or over the months, what would you say? Jan likes to see she comes back because she's a slow learner and a fast forgetter. So many of us need to be reminded regularly of what we have within us. I found a quote that I found at the retreat when I was doing some reading that encapsulates, I think, the reason I keep coming back to church year after year. It's from Inner Voice of Love by Henri Nouwen. And he says, it is far from easy to keep living where God is. God gives you people who help to hold you in that place and call you back to it when you wander off. So that's who you are to me. How often I wander off? Perhaps 10% of you do too. So yet another reason we need each other. To probably ask a person, remind me of the truth of who I am, give me another perspective, tell me, what am I forgetting? Nouwen reminds us that you need people who can keep you anchored in your true identity. The temptation to disconnect from that deep place in where God dwells always remains. There are many reasons we need one another, that we need community in different ways. And here's yet another reason, one that perhaps we don't take advantage of. So often our soul's light no longer shines as it used to. But as someone said, Sometimes we just find those people who can see the light beneath all that dust and darkness that's been piled up. The kind of light workers who understand our broken souls and manage to pick us up and see the beauty within us when we find it so hard to find it ourselves. I love that. Light workers who understand our broken souls and manage to pick us up and see the beauty within us. Wow. That's the person we need to go to and say, remind me of the truth of who I am. Remind me so I can make another choice, one that is not based on separation. Remind me what I sang last Sunday with gusto. You sang, let there be love on earth and let it begin with me. Oh, right, that's it. Let it begin with me. Each week we sing, let there be love on earth, let it begin with me. Not, let it begin with me once I'm through ripping him apart for what he did. Or once allergy season ends. Let there be love on earth and it will begin with me. Not, it will begin with me once the kid at the next table at the restaurant stops screaming. Or, it will begin with me after I give her the finger for cutting me off. How about, let there be love on earth and it has begun with me. Because I am loved, that is what I have within me, that is we have within us, and that is what we're told here each week that we have within us. And how easily we forget. Give me what you have within you. Well, we've already got it. We're children of God. We can live from that higher consciousness with the knowledge of oneness, of unity with God, rather than the experience of separation. And Joel Goldsmith says, if we have discord within, it's due to a separate existence outside of God. The Course in Miracles says separation from God is the only lack you really need correct. That's the only problem, acting as if we are separated from God. So in unity, we believe we have a choice, right? At every moment. That we can live from what we have within us, and that it's not based on our situation, or circumstance, or how the winds are blowing, that we just have to adjust ourselves. The Course, again, says by changing your mind, you have changed the most powerful device I've ever given you for change. When I've spoken here in the past, I've often spoken of this quote that's so important to me. Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning talks about his experience in a concentration camp. He became a psychiatrist, and in Man's Search for Meaning, part of the book is about logotherapy, and the other part is his experience in this camp. And his realization that everything can be taken from us but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Now that humbles me in the face of some things I'm dealing with now. In January, I announced I'd be retiring later in the year at our staff meeting. Now, the people who needed to know knew that. But there were many other people who didn't know exactly. And it was helpful, it made it real, it began discussions, it enhanced my thinking about it. People started talking to me whether or not I wanted to talk about it, their reactions. It helped me to start actively taking steps towards it. And when I told a friend in New York that I had announced it at the staff meeting, she said that it was now etched into the universe. I loved that. I loved that image, etched into the universe. I've continued to process my leaving to start sharing responsibilities, turning things over, thereby etching it deeper into the universe. And I'll retire on August 4th. Anyway, I thought, and I have been thinking, what have I etched into the universe over my years of employment? What have I etched into the universe in my life? What have I etched into the universe by saying this, or doing that, or thinking this? Yep, even thinking. Our thoughts are prayers. That sound familiar? Yeah. We are etching something all the time. Lesson 16 in course reminds us, we have no neutral thoughts. There's no such thing as idle thoughts, for every thought you have contributes to truth or illusion. So I ask you, what would you like to be etching into the universe? If our life is our message, as Gandhi said, what message are you etching right now? And how does that match up with the message you want to put out there? Not sure? Well, who in your life would you trust to ask? Ask, what message did you see me putting out there? Or what message did I put out there when I said this or did that? Who in your life could you ask who would have looked at you like you were nuts? If I believe that my thoughts, my words, and actions contribute to peace for all three of those need to be watched. Thoughts, words, and actions, for each etches something in the world that has impact in some way. Then I thought about Etch-a-Sketch. Anybody in here old enough to remember Etch-a-Sketch? I won't ask anybody not to remember it. Red thing, the dials, right? You twist and you make a crooked picture. And then you want to get rid of it, turn it upside down and you shake. Do you remember that it left a ghost of what you etched? I've thought of this sort of etching to the universe. Our actions, words, and thoughts leave traces too. Nothing's completely erased. I would like to leave the spiritual richness part of what I know I have within me etched on the world. Not just what has come out of my mouth at times because I'm impatient or in a bad mood or hurting or the pollen is to unreal levels. Not just because I'm not vigilant. So I come here to be reminded. And the core values. Is there an easy way of putting our core values up there? No. Okay. No problem. No problem. Because last week, I have to tell you, I was listening to John, thinking about stuff he said. And then, for some reason, I really read and stayed with the core values. I don't think I've done that a lot. I can tell you what I have done. I've looked at the gorgeous colors. Seriously. I thought, oh my God, that's beautiful. The mission, the vision. That's what I've looked at. I've not done stuff with the words. Last week I did. Makes me wonder, I don't know other people's experience, if somehow we need to take a moment during the service to be with them together. I don't know. But the core values, I don't know about you, but there are times I'm not etching them into the world. I'd like to etch them a little more. We came up with those together. We spent time coming up with those together. Anyway, I come here to be reminded. Hopefully, I'll use them a little more. Because we hear all the time what we have within us, and it's not always so great. We hear from the news, we hear from family, from bosses, from teachers, from politicians, from so-called religious leaders. And we're also here at Unity, which tells us that because of what we have within us, greater things than this rock are ours. Who do we believe? Do you live your life in a way that reflects the belief in unity principles? Do you align yourself with the Christ standard? Or are you a slave to old fears, past experiences, perceptions of others, to what is on the news? If so, we need to choose again, and again, and again, and chisel away. To choose again, to start using the gifts God's given us, and never forget that one of those gifts is the gift of each other. Reverend Sandy often reminded us that when we have a problem, to go to God first, to look to God for answers, and to wait. We might read spiritual readings, call silent unity, pray, use our prayer box or our chaplain. But let's not forget that God has given us one another. The person you ask also has the Christ-like within. So choose someone who can respond from that place. Who would you go to who could see the light beneath all that dust and darkness that's been piled up? Who could help you keep living where God is, to call you back to it when you wander off, and when you forget what you have within you? So etch mindfully. Don't worry about adding something new. Just chisel away, uncover gifts you already possess. Take what you have within you and etch deeply into the universe. Your church needs you. Your community needs you. The country needs you. The world needs you. So let's etch together. Blessings.